The only thing better than an epic fight is an epic rematch, the moment the defeated fighters wait patiently for. They constantly think about the man who beat them and devise a game plan to defeat them in the future.
Vou falar uma coisa aqui que eu nunca falei pra ninguém. Pô, eu tenho 28 no amador, 28 lutas, eu tenho 25 delas eu ganhei por nocaute. As 3 lutas eu perdi. E as 3 lutas foi pro mesmo cara. No amador. As 3 lutas. Eu não entendi por quê, mas hoje eu entendo. O jogo não casa. Acho que se o cara já parou de lutar. Hoje, se eu for lutar com ele novamente, eu acho que eu perco de novo. O cara já parou de lutar. Se eu for lutar com ele, eu vou perder. Eu acho que se eu lutar com ele 10 vezes, eu vou perder.
Because some fighters, no matter how good they are, find their kryptonite in a certain opponent. Accordingly, we bring you the top 5 bonus-winning rematches where fighters lost twice in the fights you must watch more than once.
And that's why Izzy's so special, that he's like, I can figure this out.
After the first fight that exceeded our expectations, how many of you thought Alexander Volkanovski would excel in the rematch against Islam Makhachev? Despite his loss, Volkanovski had the honor of being the first man to expose Islam. UFC 284 was headlined by pound-for-pound best fighters, champion versus champion at the peak of MMA performance with masterclass grappling and striking exchanges. The fight ended with a unanimous decision win of Volkanovski. Alexander the Great dared to be great once again, going up a weight class, facing the most feared man in the lightweight division, and giving us the fight of the year 2023.
Because Alex, real, strong guy, short but strong, and he's the best fighter in the world.
Makhachev's wrestling dominance was less effective than he thought it would be. Alexander answered many questions that night and removed many doubts when he took Islam to the depths he had never been to. He made him vulnerable, and he made him look human. The featherweight champion shattered the invincible image of Khabib's prodigy, exposing his weaknesses. Or at least we all thought so.
And hearing that he was saying, I heard it, I could be wrong, that he was going back to his corner saying he wants a rematch because he thought he lost. That's funny. I'm going to jump on that. Rematch.
Their rematch was inevitable, but first Makhachev was supposed to defend his title at UFC 284 later in 2023 against former champion Charles Oliveira. However, the long-awaited fight was not realized because Do Bronx was injured and was forced to pull out. But this unfortunate set of circumstances gave us something even better. Volk, being the stud that he is, received a short notice call to which he gladly answers, convinced that he can defeat the dominant Makhachev.
You say prepare for what you believe is going to happen. What do you believe is going to happen?
I believe I finish it. You know what I mean? Again, I think this is, you're going to see a real, probably one of the most dangerous Volkanovskis you've ever seen. Just purely because I can't afford to do anything else.
His bravery still gives goosebumps to this day, and we can swear we still hear the Down Under song when we think of this moment. Unfortunately for Alex, Islam Makhachev is not a man you can succeed against on short notice, because the Dagestani is a master at killing doubts. If the fight was lost by decision due to lack of preparation, Volk would have many excuses, but after the brutal knockout, nothing could be said. After several low and middle kicks, Islam suddenly changed the target and unexpectedly hit Alex with a high kick that completely shut him down in round 2. This was the first time in the last 10 years that the legendary Volk was knocked out, and Islam was the only man picking up bonus that night. If the fans had a time machine, they would gladly go back in time and prevent Volk from accepting the fight, because the rematch should definitely have happened, but under better conditions. Some even jokingly blame Charles Oliveira for getting injured. However, Do Bronx also finds a place on our list in a double fight against Michael Chandler. In 2021, Iron Mike became the first man to knock out the super durable Dax. Miraculously, this win put him right in the title picture.
Could have fought me January 23rd and I would have done the same thing to you.
Hey man, you said no, man. I'm gonna be real. You got the attitude. You got Dana White privilege.
Tony. Thanks, Dana.
After 8 consecutive victories, Charles finally found himself in a vacant lightweight title fight. The fight between him and Chandler lasted only 5 minutes and 20 seconds, but it was so explosive that it seemed much longer. Michael came close to setting the record for fastest title win since signing the UFC contract. Towards the end of the first round, Oliveira was pressed against the fence, where he was knocked down with hard punches. Everyone thought the end was near when Michael started punishing him with ground and pound shots. But do Bronx didn't come this far to be finished. Instead, he weathered the storm and waited for the end of the round to return as an executioner in the next. Left hook counter shook Chandler right after the bell, and then do Bronx hunted him down until the finish to finally become the champion.
Yeah, it was an incredible main event. Both guys had an unbelievable performance in that fight, and Oliveira pulled it out. Incredible fight. Incredible first round.
Oliveira had one of the most legendary title runs in the promotion's history. He also broke the record for most finishes and earned a Performance of the Night bonus. However, few thought we would see a rematch because their careers were separate ways, but luckily UFC had other plans.
I got more promo, more eyeballs, more of everything in the last year and a half than I would have gotten with 3 fights, and now I get the opportunity to take a title run. I beat Charles Oliveira, I become the #1 contender. I beat Charles Oliveira, I can choose to go fight Islam or Arman. I believe it's going to be Islam.
Michael may not be the most intelligent person when he steps into the cage, but no one can say that his fights are boring. He proved that even through defeats, and 3 years later, he is again standing across from the man who defeated him, ready for revenge and another fight of the night.
Yeah, I mean, he's like an Arturo Gatti, man. He's one of those guys. Win, lose, or draw, you're never bummed out at the end of a Michael Chandler fight.
Their rematch had everything fans of violence are looking for, but this time, Michael was the man who refused to be finished. Oliveira outstruck him and tried submitting him multiple times, but his one-sided dominance nearly ended in the 5th round when Mike stepped on the gas and almost finished him. However, time was not on his side, and when the final bell rang, do Bronx triumphed for the second time, with his skill set being too much for the over-prepared Chandler, who lost the war but gained Oliveira's respect.
We got to give some credit to Michael Chandler, right? Because there are not many athletes, not many fighters on the planet. When Charles Oliveira gets top position like that, they don't survive that long.
Sure. A great name, great champion, one of the toughest guys I've ever fought here, so he deserves all the respect in the world.
We are moving on to arguably the greatest light heavyweight bout in UFC history and its sequel, Jon Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson, in the fight of the year 2013.
Dana, we just might have witnessed one of the greatest light heavyweight title fights in UFC history.
With a record of 15-1, Gus was on a 6-fight winning streak in the UFC and thus earned his title shot. Jones, on the other hand, had already made 5 successful title defenses, and everyone thought he would make easy work of Alex too. No one suspected that the Swede and underdog would bring the unbeaten fighter to the brink of destruction.
All these other fighters, up until you get to Alexander Gustafsson, you could make the argument that he had a similar career. You look what he did to Rashad Evans, look what he did to Rampage Jackson, look what he did to Lyoto Machida, look what he did to everybody. But the Gustafsson fight, then you have to say, well, how much slack do you give him for admittedly not training? Because it was a really close fight. He pulls it out in the championship round, even though he's out of shape, even though you talk to Greg Jackson, he didn't train for that fight, didn't train. Still managed to beat one of the best guys in the division after getting taken down for the first time in his career.
He became the first man to take down Jones, and in addition, he changed the appearance of his face in a back-and-forth war that lasted 5 unexpected rounds. The amount of adversity he put the champion through was incredible, and it seemed like Bones had finally found his match. The UFC took him straight to the hospital after the fight. Although Jones was victorious in this epic battle, the question of the winner was debatable. Gus had thought he won the fight, and Jon revealed that he had a terrible training camp that could have cost him the light heavyweight throne, and many thought it was just an excuse. People wanted the rematch, and they wanted it badly. But thanks to his tendency to get into trouble, he waited 5 full years for another fight. Considering how long we waited, it was nothing like the first battle. Jon Jones decided to show everybody how he operates with a full training camp. Every time Jones rematches with fighters, it's nowhere near the first bout. He behaves like a computer and calculates quickly and destroys even quicker. His IQ only needed 2 rounds to decipher Alex, and then at the beginning of the 3rd, he took him down and beat the hell out of him.
He is once again the official UFC light heavyweight champion. And Jon, I gotta say, when I watched you walk into the arena tonight, you just looked like a guy who already knew. You looked like someone who already knew what was going to happen tonight. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, I did. I felt really great. I felt like I was in my element. I felt home. Leading up to the fight, man, there was just no fear. I was having fun the whole time, and that was scaring me, that I wasn't afraid at all. I'm feeling like a veteran, man. I feel like I'm knowing what I'm doing these days.
If you haven't watched the double fight between Rory MacDonald and Robbie Lawler, ask yourself if you're even a UFC fan. Before they met for the first time in 2013, Rory was on a 5-fight UFC winning streak, and Robbie had yet to become a champion. It was an ordinary 3-round welterweight bout that could have gone either way. Robbie led the first 2 rounds in strikes, and MacDonald proved to be an excellent mixed martial artist who used admixtures of successful takedowns and tried not to lack much in the striking department. Rory wasn't happy with the split decision loss, especially since Mario Yamasaki stood them up without warning after MacDonald's successful takedowns.
It was a close one. You know, the most frustrating part about that fight was the referee.
It's a real shame that the fight didn't go to 5 rounds, but as there is something good in everything bad, that delicacy was left for another chance, a better chance. After the first fight, Rory's coach said, "Be ready, we will meet Lawler again." And boy, was he right. 2 years later, they met under different circumstances. Robbie was the champion and Rory was the challenger in a 5-round title fight. Considering how quiet both of them are outside the cage, they proved to be quite loud inside. But it was their MMA skill that did the talking. No takedowns, no strikes, blood and broken bones. Both had to scratch under their skin and pull the animal out. As time passed, MacDonald was getting closer to the title and his vengeance. This time he led in strikes and almost finished Lawler. Until the last minute, the question was, who was the tougher man? And the Ruthless answered that question.
It was more just like he was hitting me, it was breaking my bones.
Robbie proved to be a champion for a reason. He managed to pull himself out of defeat in the 5th round when he completely destroyed MacDonald's face to take the win. The boys brought us Fight of the Year 2015, which was later inducted into the Hall of Fame. Robbie went home a champion, and poor Rory, defeated for the 2nd time, got a free ride to the hospital.
If you look at Rory MacDonald, nose was broken in the 1st round. Couldn't breathe, couldn't see, continued to fight, right? And it's looking like a one-sided clinic. Then he hurts Robbie Lawler, right? Then he follows up with like 10 head kicks to the head and doesn't finish Lawler. Lawler hangs in there and makes it through that. Robbie Lawler's lip. If you could have been in the octagon and saw this lip, okay? He would talk and this part of the lip would move and the other part wouldn't, right? What's his name nose was broken. They asked him when Rory got out back, they said, what year is it? He didn't know what year it was.
As an active fighter, Chad Mendes could stop anyone in the featherweight division. Well, everybody except the reigning champion, Jose Aldo, whose undefeated era lasted for a whole decade. After a couple of defenses of the UFC featherweight title in 2012, it was the turn of young Money Mendes. Accomplished as a formidable wrestler and undefeated with 11 consecutive victories, he was the ideal dance partner and a great test for the striking master.
Telling my teammates, I'm going to be fighting that guy someday. I know it. And, I was hoping that it would be for the belt, and here we are today about the fight.
Everybody expected Chad would be eager to take the fight to the ground as soon as possible, but Aldo's takedown defense was out of this world. Even when Mendes managed to stick to him near the end of the 1st round and pin him against the fence, boom, brutal knee out of nowhere. Just like that. Jose Aldo made another title defense a few seconds before the bell with a knockout and without a scratch.
I'm just gonna say Jose is a different beast, man. He's a tough dude.
However, this was not the end of Mendes, and what he did after this fight was nothing short of impressive. His first title run was based on decisions, and then he started knocking people out, mostly in the 1st rounds. Upgraded Mendes found himself in the title picture again, and there was Jose, still on the throne, but with 3 more defenses.
Fight of the night, Aldo Mendes. No doubt. Greatest featherweight championship fight I've ever seen in my life.
Towards the end of 2014, it all went down. This was an underrated 5-round war and featherweight version of Ghost vs. John. Driven by revenge, Chad Mendes came to Jose's city in the best shape of his 23-fight career. He did his homework on Jose this time around and left everything he had in the cage. Exchanges, knockdowns, and constant pressure from both sides. He hit Aldo with everything he had, but Jose just wouldn't stay down. Unfortunately, Chad's Supreme Fighting Edition, as good as it was, wasn't enough to exact revenge. Aldo remained the champ in 2014.
I mean, I feel like that was my everything. This is a dream come true for me, This was a fight that I wanted more than anything, I wanted to put on a good show for the fans. You know, I feel like I trained harder than I've ever trained for a fight, and I felt like I was so ready. And I went out there and laid everything on the line, and you know, I just hope you guys enjoyed it.